Greetings and welcome to Political Empire. I'm your host, Kim Pearsall with the Press Enterprise and PE.com. We're going to talk about Clinton's influence in the past election this year, and then we're going to talk about an interesting issue going on in the city of Riverside involving the cross on Mount Rubidoux. So first, 5 for 5. Call him the kingmaker. President Clinton went 5 for 5 in his endorsements in California congressional races, granted former President Bill Clinton, including Mark Takano and Raul Ruiz races. Other Democratic candidates who got the Clinton seal of approval included Julia Brownley in Ventura County, Alan Lowenthal in Long Beach, and Scott Peters, who held the lead in San Diego. So pretty good sign. If you get an endorsement from former President Clinton in a race, you may have that seat secured. So now we're going to talk about the cross that's in the legal crosshairs in the city of Riverside right now. There's been a cross atop the city's Mount Rubidoux for as long as most Riversiders can remember, but a group is threatening to sue to have it removed. An original wooden cross was first erected in 1907, and this one has been there since about 1963. Here to tell us more about this case of separation of church and state is Alicia Robinson, who covers the city of Riverside. Alicia, thanks so much for being here today. First, tell us the background, because yeah, this cross has been on that mountain for a very long time. Why all of a sudden is there a challenge to it?
Well, I think actually a lot of people were not entirely surprised that this came up. The city of Riverside received a letter at the end of August from a group called Americans United for Separation of Church and State. And that group was threatening. They said they received a complaint from somebody, and they have not revealed who it is, that the cross needed to be removed, or they would file a lawsuit on the grounds that it was a constitutional violation because there have been a lot of previous court cases where courts have held that having a cross or some other religious symbol on public land is unconstitutional.
And in terms of who is supporting the cross's removal and who is supporting the cross remaining there, what are the camps that are right now supporting or not supporting that cross on that mountain?
Well, I think the people that I have heard from and that spoke to the city council recently and that have commented on our website and Facebook pretty much fall into three camps. There was a small group of people who said either I'm not religious or I'm an atheist, and as such I see having the cross represented in this prominent place is exclusionary. It makes me feel excluded in my own city. That was probably a minority. Most of the people who have brought up this issue have said that they want the cross to remain there, either because they are Christian and it's a very important symbol to them of their faith, but I think the largest group, whether or not they professed to be religious or not, said that they see the cross really as a historic symbol of the city and just kind of a landmark that's been in Riverside for very many years, and they want it to stay for that reason.
Well, and there was also another curious situation that you had blogged about. The city technically owns the land that the cross sits on, but there's a question that if the city sold the cross in order to remove it, that they'd have to sell the entire mountain. Now, that's not true, is it?
No. What was proposed to the city council was that they sell a small portion of the property, about a little less than half an acre that has the cross on it, and once that was in private hands, the private owner could either leave the cross there or take it down as they chose. That remedy has worked in some other legal challenges, most recently the Mojave cross. I believe there was some sort of a land swap that allowed the land with the cross, the disputed cross, to go into private ownership, and so it can remain in place. So that's what the city was looking at. Now there's a clause, the family of Frank Miller, the Mission Inn founder, originally gave the city the land that contains Mount Rubidoux and the cross, and there was a clause in the original contract that said the city had to keep the cross there and also continue to allow the long-running Easter sunrise service. And if those conditions were breached, the land would revert back to the Miller family. However, there is a state law that was passed back in the 80s that essentially negated those kinds of reversionary clauses if they were not specifically renewed. So that clause would have expired. So the city does not have to give the land back if it takes the cross down.
And you're right. In case of the Mojave Cross, there was essentially a little fence that was erected around the cross space, and that became private property versus the public property that surrounded it. Now, where are they going from here? Because they were supposed to make a decision at a recent council meeting. It doesn't look like they did that, so what's the next step?
Well, it was a very long council meeting, and the council chambers were completely packed. Fire marshal was saying no more people could come in. They had more than 2 hours of public testimony, And a lot of people had suggestions, including one man who's a local attorney who said he's affiliated with a nonprofit group that actually helps defend these kind of cross cases, and that group apparently is interested in talking with Riverside and giving them some legal advice. So the city council finally decided toward the very end of the meeting that they're going to postpone making a decision until January so that they can explore more legal options and see if there are other possible choices that they have not yet considered.
Well, quite the interesting issue. Alicia, thanks so much for covering the story for the Press Enterprise and for being here today to tell us a little bit more about it. And thank you for watching another edition of Political Empire. We'll see you next week.